Hey guys, today we're going to talk about Chapter 2, Lesson 4. We talked about fractions, decimals, and percents, and now we're going to talk about what they look like when percents are greater than 100 and less than 1%. Okay, some things we need to remember, okay, and I put this little hint here. A percent that's less than 1% equals a number that's less than 0.01 or 100th. Okay, a percent that's greater than 100% equals a number greater than 1. So if you had a 2 here, it'd be 200%. And we're going to talk about what that is today. Okay. Example number 1 says write 0.2% as a decimal and as a fraction in simplest form. Now, the first thing we need to do here, okay, if we remember from the other day, when we turned a percent into a decimal, we needed to drop the percent sign and move our decimal 2 places. So if I rewrite my number by dropping my percent sign, before we started at the end, but if there's a decimal in the problem, you're going to start where the decimal is. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the left. 1, 2. And then I'm going to rewrite my number by adding a 0 as 0.002. That is my decimal for this problem. Again, if I'm turning a percent into a decimal, I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the left, right? Just so you remember, I'm going to start where the decimal point is, 1, 2, and then I rewrite it, okay? Now, if I want to turn it into a fraction, remember when I turn decimals into fractions, I read the number. So my numerator is going to be 2, and if I look at my denominator, I need to look at what place value it's in. So I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So because the 2 is in my thousand spot, my bottom number is going to be 1,000. Now I'm not done because it asked me to put it in simplest form. So because these are both even, 2 and 1,000, I can divide them both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. So my final fraction here is 1 over 500. Again, it's less than 100th, and it's less than 1%. So for these types of problems, I need 2 answers. I need a decimal and a fraction. Okay, let's take a look at example number 2. This one says, write 170% as a mixed number in simplest form and as a decimal. Well, again, if I start as my decimal, I'm going to rewrite the number, drop the percent sign. I don't see a decimal here, so if there's no decimal, I'm going to add the decimal point at the end. And then I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. 1, 2. When I rewrite this number, I have 1.7 or 1.70. Either one works. They're both the same number. It doesn't matter how many zeros I add at the end. I'm still going to get the same number. Okay. Now, if I write this as a mixed number, again, remember I can read that decimal and write it as a fraction. So I have 1 and 7 tenths. So I have a whole number of 1. My numerator is going to be 7. My denominator is going to be tenths because it's in the tenth spot. 7 and 10 have nothing else in common, so that's my final answer. Now, if you wrote it as 1.70, look what happens. I have 1 and 70 hundredths. I can divide them both by 10, and I'm still left with 1 and 7 tenths. Okay, so either one, it still simplifies to be the same. Okay, if you can do it in less steps, I would encourage you to do it in less steps. Okay, let's take a look at example number 3. Example number 3 says write 250% as a mixed number in simplest form and as a decimal. Again, when I change a percent into a decimal, I'm going to rewrite my number and drop the percent sign. I'm going to add a decimal at the end, and I'm still only going to move it 2 places. 1, 2. When I rewrite this number, I have 2.5 or I have 2.50. Either one works. Again, if you can do it in less steps, do it in less steps. When I write this as a mixed number, I can read this as 2 and, so I have 2 as my whole number, 5/10. Well, I need to simplify because the problem tells me I need to simplify. I know 5 and 10 have a common denominator. So I'm going to divide them both by 5. And I'm left with 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Don't forget to bring your whole number over. I have 2.5. Same thing here. If I have 2 and 50 over 100, 50 over 100 still equals a half. Okay, so my answer here is going to be 2.5 and 2.5. Notice that both of these numbers are still greater than 1, like we talked about in our hint at the beginning of the lesson. Okay, let's look at example number 4. Now we're going to be changing fractions and decimals into percents. Okay, now I can't just say this fraction, 1 1/4, is 1 1/4 percent. Okay, there's a few things I need to do here. The first thing I need to do is I need to make it equal to 100. So there's 2 things I can do here. I can say 1 1/4. 4 times 1 is 4. Plus 1 gives me 5. So I have 5/4. And then I know all percents are out of 100. So I could set it equal to 100 because I know 4 works well with 100. 4 times what number gives me 100? Well, if I think about quarters, 4 quarters equal $1. So remember, if I multiply the bottom by 25, I have to multiply the top by 25. 5 times 25 gives me 125. So if I was to write this as a percent, I have 125%. Now, if you know these two numbers as per what they equivalent to, you could do that as well. So for example, I would have made this a little easier and I would have said, okay, 1 equals 100%, and 1/4 I know equals 25%. So if I add 100 plus 25, I still get 125%. So if you know some of those numbers or those benchmark numbers or numbers, fractions you should know, go ahead and do that as well, all right, to make it easier for yourself. Now the next 3, we're going to turn these decimals into percents. Again, if I'm turning a decimal to a percent, remember I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right. So I'm going to rewrite my number, which is 1.68. I'm going to start where the decimal point is, and I'm going to move it 2 places. 1, 2. Then I just rewrite my number, adding my percent sign. So I have 168%. Okay, same thing with the next one. Rewrite my number, 0.0075. I'm going to start where the decimal point is, and I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2. I rewrite my number, 0.75. Okay. Next one, write 2.1 as a percent. Again, I'm going to rewrite my decimal, 2.1. I'm going to start where the decimal point is, and I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. 1, 2. Because I have a big empty spot there, I need to add a 0. That becomes 210%. And actually, sorry guys, for number 6, I forgot to put my percent there. You should have 0.75%. Don't forget to add your percent if it's asking for a percent. Okay? Now, I know this lesson could be a little tricky. I would go back and look at these notes, okay, as you're doing your problems, because we're kind of mixing all 3 lessons, 1, 2, and 3 together in order to deal with numbers that are greater than 100 and less than 1. So you need to make sure that you remember all those rules. All right? Feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.